Wow, look who finally decided to show up. Couldn't even be on time for your own brother's big day, could you? Some things never change. The words hit me like a slap, sharp and deliberate, cutting through the warm laughter floating around my parents' backyard. For a moment, I froze. One foot was still resting on the patio step, and in my hand, I held an expensive bottle of bourbon I had picked up just for the occasion. Conversations died mid-sentence, and every single pair of eyes turned toward me. Aunts, uncles, cousins, even old family friends. Suddenly, I was the center of the show. A show my little brother Mark had decided to host at my expense. He was, standing proudly by the grill, waving a spatula in his hand like it was some kind of royal scepter. His grin was smug, fueled by too many beers and too much attention. In that moment, he wasn't just cooking burgers, he was holding court, enjoying every bit of the spotlight. My face burned, but I forced a polite smile. Sorry, Mark. Traffic was brutal. You know how it is. I raised the bourbon slightly. I brought your favorite, Pappy Van Winkle. Thought it might be fitting to celebrate your big promotion. He didn't even glance at the bottle. Instead, he let out a mocking scoff, loud enough for the entire crowd to hear. Promotion. Right. Must be nice to just stroll in with a fancy gift. Some of us actually have to work for our success, Liam. Some of us don't just coast through life trying one thing after another. What was it you used to do? Graphic design? Or was it podcasting? He laughed, a harsh, cutting laugh. So, tell me, what's your latest get-rich-quick scheme this time? The crowd chuckled awkwardly, unsure whether to laugh with him or stay silent. My mom, ever the peacekeeper, stepped in. Now, Mark, that's not fair. Liam has a very good job. Mark leaned in with fake curiosity, voice dripping with sarcasm. Really, Mom? Doing what exactly? Playing video games? Because from where I'm standing, I'm the one with the real career. I'm the one who just became senior, project manager at Ether Corp. That's a serious company. That's real responsibility, not some freelance nonsense. Everyone nodded, murmured, even smiled in approval. They were impressed. Ether Corp, my company. The same company I had built from the ground up with my college roommate. The same company Mark had begged me to get him into just a year and a half ago. But they didn't know that. To them, I was still Liam, the older brother who had never quite figured life out, the dreamer, the disappointment. And that's when I knew. I had a story to tell. Hi, my name is Liam, and this is the story of how my younger brother tried to humiliate me in front of my entire family, not realizing the so-called nobody he was mocking was the actual founder and CEO of the company he was bragging about. Mark and I, we've never exactly been best friends. He's 2 years younger, but somehow he's always been the golden child. When we were kids, he was the star athlete, the one coaches bragged about, the one my dad proudly cheered for at every game. Me, I was the quiet one. I loved coding, designing, tinkering on computers long into the night. My parents called it a phase. They never understood it. I loved my brother, because that's what you do, but over time, I learned to keep my distance. I stopped sharing my passions because every time I did, he had a joke ready to tear me down. By the time I was in college, I had learned my lesson. Keep my dreams to myself. When I started Ether Corp with my best friend Ben, I didn't even tell my family. I just said I was doing consulting. It was easier than trying to explain and then being mocked or dismissed. What they didn't know was that Ben and I were building something real. From a cramped garage with nothing but cheap laptops and an insane amount of coffee, we worked day and night. We failed 100 times, we barely survived, but we kept going. And eventually, Ether Corp became one of the most innovative tech firms in Southern California. But in my family's eyes, I was still just the dreamer. Fast forward to about a year and a half ago. Mark had just lost his job. He came to me desperate. His usual arrogance softened into something almost human. Liam, he said, his voice unusually humble, I heard you have some connections in tech. You know, with that consulting thing you do. Think you could get me an interview somewhere? Anywhere. I'm drowning here, man. I saw an opportunity. Maybe, just maybe, this was my chance to actually connect with him. Ben and I had a strict rule. No family hires. But this time, I made an exception. I called our head of HR personally. I'm sending you a resume, I said. Name's Mark. Treat it like any other. Don't give him special treatment, and if he's not qualified, don't hire him. Mark barely squeaked through the process. His technical skills weren't great, but his charm carried him, as it always did. He landed a junior project coordinator role. He was thrilled. He had no idea I was the reason his resume even got through the automated filters, and I never told him. Inside the company, my official title was Head of Special Projects. It was vague on purpose. I preferred to stay behind the curtain, away from the spotlight, working on big-picture innovations while Ben handled the day-to-day operations. Hardly anyone outside the top leadership even knew I was the founder. I wanted Mark to succeed, or fail, based on his own efforts, not because of me. And of course, he took all the credit. At family dinners, he'd brag endlessly about this mysterious company he worked for, tossing around buzzwords he barely understood: synergies, scalability, paradigm shifts. My parents would beam with pride, eating it up, and me, I just sat there, quietly, chewing my food, nodding. That's great, Mark. Sometimes my mom would pat my hand and say, Don't worry, Liam, your consulting will work out too. It was almost funny. Almost. Then Mark got promoted. Senior Project Manager. It wasn't a huge promotion, but it was enough to boost his ego sky high. My parents insisted on throwing him a party to celebrate. This party. The one where he decided to make me the evening's punching bag. So there I was, standing in my parents' backyard, bourbon bottle still in my hand, with my younger brother publicly mocking me. Every jab was sharper than the last, and the worst part, my family was eating it up. He finally took the bottle from me, set it down on the table like it was nothing, and turned back to his audience. A real job, he declared, comes with real pressure. Not like Liam's so-called consulting gig. I've got 50 people under me. The buck stops with me. I bit back a laugh. 50? No. He had a team of 15. And the buck? It stopped with his supervisor, Jessica. She reported to a director who reported to Ben, who reported to me. But I stayed quiet. I had stayed quiet my whole life. My dad tried to step in. Leave your brother alone, Mark. But the smile tugging at his lips told me everything. He was enjoying this. His successful son putting his dreamer son in his place. That was the moment, the straw that finally broke me. Across the patio, I caught my wife, Sarah's eyes. She knew the truth. She knew everything. And with just one small, subtle nod, she told me what I needed to hear. You don't have to take this anymore. I took a breath. Not the Liam they thought they knew. The shy, quiet one. But the Liam who ran boardrooms, who negotiated with investors, who built a company from the ground up. That Liam finally stepped forward. 50 people, huh? I said evenly, my voice carrying across the yard. That's a lot of responsibility for a new senior project manager at Ether. Mark blinked, his grin faltering. Yeah, it is, but I can handle it. Some of us are built for it. I'm sure you are, I replied. I took a slow step toward him, never breaking eye contact. Tell me, how's Project Epsilon going? I heard QA hit a few delays. The color drained from his face. His laugh caught in his throat. How do you know about Project Epsilon? That's confidential. I ignored his question. And Jessica, still holding those painfully long Friday stand-ups? Now the spatula in his hand was trembling. The confidence, the bravado. It was slipping away. His eyes darted nervously between me and the stunned faces of our family. Who are you? he whispered. I pulled out my phone. Calm. Steady. I tapped a few times, then lifted it to my ear. The backyard had gone dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. A voice answered. Yes, Mr. Evans? I didn't look away from Mark. Hi, Janet. I need you to send an all-hands email immediately. Every single employee at Ether, mandatory meeting tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock sharp, main conference center, 20th floor. No exceptions. Yes, sir. Should I include the subject? Yes, I said, my tone firm. Company direction and zero-tolerance policies, specifically professionalism and respect, inside and outside the workplace. The typing was rapid, frantic on the other end. Right away, sir. I ended the call, slid the phone back into my pocket, and finally turned back to the table. I poured myself a glass of bourbon, the silence stretching so thick it was almost physical. I raised the glass slightly in Mark's direction. Congratulations on the promotion. I'm sure you'll do great things at my company. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My mom covered her mouth. My dad's jaw dropped. Aunts and uncles started whispering like wildfire. Mark looked like the ground had been pulled out from under him. His knees buckled and he had to grab a chair to keep from collapsing. Your company. His voice cracked. Ether is your Liam Evans, I said simply. Head of Special Projects, which, in case you didn't know, is the internal title for founder, majority shareholder, and CEO. But you can just call me boss. The devastation on his face was priceless. A mix of shock, humiliation, and horror. The man who had spent his whole life mocking me had just discovered that the nobody he belittled was the one signing his paychecks. I didn't wait for his response. I didn't need to. I set my glass down, walked across the patio, and slipped my hand into Sarah's. Together, we left the backyard in absolute silence, leaving behind a trail of stunned faces and one broken brother standing there with a spatula hanging limply from his hand. The next morning, 8:55 sharp, I stood at the front of the conference center on the 20th floor of Ether headquarters. Rows and rows of employees filed in, their chatter buzzing with curiosity. Word had spread quickly. When the CEO calls a sudden all-hands meeting, it's never casual. At the very back, slumped in his chair, was Mark. He looked like he hadn't slept all night. His bravado, his swagger, it was gone. He was pale, nervous, doing everything he could to make himself invisible. At 9 o'clock sharp, I stepped up to the podium. The room hushed instantly. Good morning, everyone, I began, my voice steady, carrying across the room. Thank you for coming on such short notice. I won't keep you long. I just want to remind you all of what Ether stands for. I paused, letting my eyes sweep across the crowd, but I didn't look at Mark. I didn't need to. Innovation, integrity, and, above all, respect. We're a family here at Ether, and families lift each other up. We don't mock, we don't belittle, and we don't confuse arrogance for leadership. The way we treat others inside this building matters. The way we treat others outside this building matters just as much. Character isn't something you can put on and take off. It follows you everywhere. The room was silent. Employees nodded, some looked thoughtful, others inspired. I didn't have to name names. The message was loud and clear. After a few updates about upcoming projects, I dismissed the meeting. People clapped politely, then filtered out, buzzing with conversation. Mark didn't clap. He didn't move. He sat in the back, staring at the floor, shoulders heavy with the weight of humiliation. And from that day forward, my brother was different. He became quieter, humbler. He stopped bragging at family gatherings. At work, he kept his head down, did his job, and, ironically, he actually got better at it. I never needed to fire him. His lesson had been delivered in the most unforgettable way. He's never apologized. Not with words anyway. I think the shame runs too deep, but I see it in how he carries himself now. And honestly, that's enough. My parents eventually came around too. After the party, after the shock wore off, they sat me down with tears in their eyes. They wanted to know everything: the garage, the sacrifices, the struggles, the sleepless nights that built Ether into what it is today. For the first time in my life, they looked at me not as the dreamer, not as the disappointment, but as the son they could finally truly be proud of. It felt good, but it was bittersweet, because deep down, a part of me wished they had believed in me all along, when no one else did. If your own brother stood in front of your entire family, mocking you, dismissing you, treating you like you were nothing, only for you to reveal that you were the one holding the keys to his entire career, would you have done what I did? Would you have exposed the truth? Or would you have let him keep living in his arrogant little world, never knowing the power you truly held? Because, for me, the reveal changed everything.